Welcome to our channel. Today we will tell you a story that will make you think about the thin line between love and control. What if the desire for freedom destroys everything you've ever loved? Our hero took a desperate step by turning off location tracking, but he didn't realize that this would end his relationship. What's more important, trust or the fear of loss? Stay with us, and you'll find out how this emotional drama ends. I always believed that trust is the foundation of any relationship. When I met Kelly, I thought we had built just that kind of relationship, full of love, understanding, and freedom. We had been together for only 2 years, but it felt like we had known each other our whole lives. Everything changed the moment she started insisting that I share my location with her through an app on my phone. At first, I didn't think much of it. "It's for safety," she said. I agreed, though something inside told me this was the wrong step. Months passed, and each notification that Kelly was tracking me turned into a reason for new questions. "What are you buying at the store? Starbucks again? Why are you driving through the north side of town instead of the south?" These questions caught me off guard and irritated me. I tried to explain that these were just minor things, but Kelly was sinking deeper into her suspicions. Whenever I was late or didn't reply to her messages immediately, the interrogation would begin. We live in a quiet, safe neighborhood. I've never had any issues with dangerous situations, but now every move I made was under scrutiny. I felt like I no longer had control over my own life. The irony was that I didn't want to track her. I didn't need to know where she was every minute. I trusted her. Why couldn't she trust me? One evening, during dinner, she brought it up again. "Why don't you want to share your location all the time? Are you hiding something?" Her eyes flashed with suspicion that I couldn't understand. "I'm not cheating on you, Kelly. I just don't like the feeling of being constantly monitored," I replied, trying to stay calm. But my words didn't reassure her. On the contrary, they only fueled the fire. Her eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand, John. It's not just about trust. It's about my safety. I'm scared." I fell silent. Was I being too harsh? Maybe it really was about her fears, not a lack of trust in me. The next day, I tried to understand her words. We talked about safety, but all I felt was control. I didn't understand how sharing my location could make her feel safe. Nevertheless, I promised myself not to escalate the conflict and to try, at least, to understand her perspective. When I got home from work, Kelly was waiting for me in the kitchen, tense, holding her phone. "Why were you on the north side of town instead of the south, like usual?" Her voice was cold. I just sighed. "Kelly, I took a different route to avoid traffic. It doesn't matter." But her look said otherwise. It mattered to her. Her eyes bore into me as if she was waiting for another explanation. "You could have warned me," she continued, and at that moment I realized it was no longer just a request. It was a demand. I put down my keys and sat across from her, trying not to lose my temper. "Kelly, listen. I understand that you're worried, but this is hard for me. I need space. I'm not cheating, I'm not doing anything wrong, but the constant questions and monitoring make me nervous. You need to trust me." She tilted her head, avoiding eye contact, her voice trembling. "John, I just want to know that you're okay. Why are you taking this so hard? Why do I feel like you're hiding something?" I felt my hands clenching into fists under the table. It felt like a trap. I couldn't explain why this was important to me without making her fears seem irrational. Any explanation only made things worse. In her mind, I was already guilty, as if something had happened beyond her control. I tried to stay calm. "Kelly, this isn't about you, it's about my boundaries. I feel like I have no freedom. Don't you see that?" She stood up, trembling, trying to hold back her tears. "Freedom? What freedom are you talking about?" "Freedom is knowing that you're okay, that I won't be left alone if something happens. I don't want to lose you." Her voice cracked, and in that moment, I saw not just distrust but fear. Fear of being left alone, fear of losing control over her life, fear of uncertainty. It was more than just distrust. In her eyes, I saw that she was battling something much deeper. But what? I still didn't understand. And why had it become my problem? How could my location save us from her fears? Inside, I began to feel irritation boiling, but I tried to remain calm. "Kelly, I don't want our life to turn into paranoia. I love you, but I can't live in a cage." Days passed. But the situation only got worse. I noticed Kelly becoming more and more insistent. Every evening I came home, and her questions didn't stop. She no longer cared about my day but only wanted to know where I had been and what I was doing. Why were you in the store for so long? You stayed late at work again? Who were you talking to when you didn't answer my messages? Her voice was always even, but I felt a deep anxiety hidden beneath it. It became harder for me to bear. One evening, sitting in my car outside the house, I didn't go in for a long time. I looked at the windows of our cozy home but couldn't force myself to enter. I knew that inside was another interrogation waiting for me. Every minute of my silence, Kelly was likely watching the phone screen, tracking my location, and if I stayed just a few minutes longer, she would have to ask another question. I closed my eyes, feeling something breaking inside me. When we first got married, I loved coming home, seeing her, telling her about my day. But now, every day seemed the same. Constant explanations, excuses, endless questions. I began to doubt if I could endure this. That evening, when I finally walked into the house, I couldn't hide my exhaustion. "John, you're late again." "Why?" Kelly, sitting on the couch, didn't even turn to look at me, just kept staring at her phone. She already knew where I had been, but she needed to hear it from me. "I just wanted to be alone for a bit," I replied, tossing my keys on the table. My voice was so tired that she immediately looked up, noticing that something had changed. "Alone? Why? We're a family. We're supposed to be together." Her words sounded as if she still didn't understand what all of this meant to me. I no longer felt like part of this family. I felt like a lab rat, constantly observed. "Kelly, I'm tired." My voice became firmer. "I can't live like this anymore. You need to trust me." But she just fell silent, and that familiar anxiety returned to her eyes. "Why are you talking about trust again? You know that I just worry about you." Her voice trembled, and I understood that, no matter how hard I tried, this wasn't a conversation about trust. It was something more, something I couldn't fix. She felt broken, lost, and I was the only anchor she could control. And that control was destroying us both. I stood up and walked to the window, looking at the dark sky outside. "You know, Kelly, I understand that you're afraid of something, but you have to realize, your distrust is killing our relationship. We no longer talk about life, about what matters to us. Everything boils down to one thing, where I am and what I'm doing." She didn't respond. The oppressive silence I had grown used to settled in the room. And in that silence, I began to understand that our trust was shattered. Kelly wouldn't be able to stop controlling me, and I wouldn't be able to tolerate it any longer. Everything changed the day I turned off the tracking function. I couldn't handle the pressure anymore. When Kelly sent me yet another message, "Why are you on the north side of town again?" I felt something snap inside me. My hands shook with anger, and without thinking, I turned off the tracking feature. I wanted to feel even the briefest illusion of freedom, to be myself for a moment. But I knew that this wouldn't be the end of it. I came home and could already feel the shift in the atmosphere as I entered. Kelly was sitting in the kitchen, her face tense, her eyes burning with anger. She was silent, but her silence was like a storm waiting to break. I closed the door behind me, knowing this moment was inevitable. "You turned off the tracking," she said quietly, not looking at me. "Yes," I replied, trying to speak calmly, but inside, everything was boiling. I knew what was coming. She finally lifted her head and looked at me. Her eyes were full of pain and disappointment. "Why? Are you hiding something from me again?" Her voice carried the familiar anxiety I had grown so used to. I sat down across from her, trying not to lose my composure. "Kelly, I can't live like this anymore. I feel like you don't trust me, even though I've given you no reason to be suspicious. Every time I go somewhere, you immediately start asking questions. I just wanted a little freedom. I'm not cheating on you. I'm not doing anything wrong." She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. "It's not about freedom, John. It's about trust. I just want to know that you're okay. I can't live any other way." Her voice broke, and she turned away. I felt everything inside me turning upside down. On one hand, I wanted to understand her, to support her, but on the other, her control was suffocating me. I couldn't live like this. "Kelly, this has gone too far. Don't you see that you're turning our life into a nightmare?" Her hands shook as she wiped her tears. "You don't understand. I'm just afraid that one day you'll leave, and I'll never know what happened to you." How can I live without knowing where you are?" These words hit me harder than I expected. I could see that her fear was real, but I couldn't understand where it came from. All I wanted was a normal life where everyone has their space, where there is trust. I sighed, trying to stay calm. "You can't live in constant fear. It's destroying us." "I won't leave, Kelly. But you have to learn to trust me. We can't keep going like this." Suddenly, she stood up, her face contorted with pain. "You don't understand. It's not me, it's you. You don't want to take care of me. You don't want me to feel safe. To you this is just control, but to me it's everything. I can't sleep not knowing where you are. You don't see how much you're hurting me." Her words cut into me like knives. I tried to stay rational, but inside everything was on fire. I knew I couldn't endure this any longer. I tried to be patient, to explain, but her fears were stronger than any words I could say. I realized we were already on the edge, and no conversation could save us. A week passed after I turned off the tracking. Everything had changed. The house was filled with a cold silence. Kelly barely spoke to me, and when she did, her voice was full of hidden resentment. I knew she still couldn't understand why I had made that decision. To her, it was a betrayal. We spent our evenings in different rooms, and there was an invisible wall between us that grew taller with each passing day. One evening, when I came home, I saw Kelly sitting on the couch with her phone in her hands. Her face was thoughtful, but her eyes no longer held the anger they once did. I noticed it right away. Maybe she had finally understood that I wasn't doing anything wrong. Maybe all this distrust would pass. I cautiously sat down across from her, hoping for a conversation. "Kelly, we need to talk," I began, choosing my words carefully. She lifted her gaze to me, but her eyes were empty. That scared me more than anything. There was no anger, but there was no love left either. I saw a person I had known for 2 years, but now they seemed like a stranger. "I've thought about it a lot," she finally said quietly. Her voice was surprisingly calm. "I understand that you don't want to share your location. I understand that for you, it's a matter of freedom. But you know what, John? For me, it will always be a matter of trust. I can't live with someone who doesn't want to prove that they have nothing to hide." Her words were like a knife to the heart. I sat silently, realizing there was nothing left to say. All my attempts to explain that it wasn't about cheating or secrets were in vain. She saw me as someone who didn't trust her, and that had destroyed her trust in me. "I've never hidden anything from you," I replied quietly, feeling the words struggle to leave my mouth. "I'm not cheating, Kelly. I've never even thought about it. You're everything I have." She nodded, but her face remained expressionless. "Maybe you're right, John. Maybe you're not cheating. But it doesn't matter to me anymore. I can't live in fear that one day you'll just disappear. I can't wake up at night, checking my phone to make sure you're still there." I felt everything inside me crumbling. I didn't know what to say. All the words I had spoken to her before now seemed meaningless. I was no longer the person she wanted beside her. "You know I would never leave you," I whispered, knowing those words wouldn't change anything. She stood and walked to the window, looking out into the darkness. "I don't know anymore, John. I thought I knew you, but now I'm not sure. I can't live in this fear. Every time you turn off your phone, when you're not here, I lose control of myself. And it's killing me." Her words reflected all the fear she had carried within her all this time. She couldn't handle it, and I couldn't give her what she wanted. I felt like there was nothing I could do. We were standing on opposite shores, and the water between us was getting deeper. "What do you want to do?" I finally asked, though I already knew the answer. Kelly turned to me, her face calm, but in her eyes, I saw pain. "I think we need to break up. I can't live like this anymore. I love you, but this love is making me suffer." Those words felt like a death sentence. I couldn't believe my ears. Despite all our arguments, despite her control, I still believed we could make it through. But now, it was all over. Her decision was final, and I couldn't change it. I stood up and approached her, but she took a step back, avoiding my touch. In that moment, I realized that everything we had was already lost. Kelly left a few days later. I watched as she packed her things, neatly folding her clothes into suitcases, but there was no hurry or doubt in her movements. It seemed like the decision to leave had given her a strange confidence that she hadn't had before. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom, watching her, but inside me, there was emptiness. We hardly spoke. Every conversation was reduced to dry, insignificant phrases. Where's my book? Have you seen the charger? Everything was so mundane that it felt like nothing was happening. But I knew this was the end. That evening, just before she left, I walked to the window where we used to sit together. I remember how we loved to watch sunsets, talk about the future, dream about how our lives would unfold. But now the future had become foggy, devoid of meaning. She stood at the door, ready to leave, her hand on the doorknob. I wanted to say something, but the words got stuck in my throat. Kelly turned to me, and in her eyes, I saw that everything was already decided. "Goodbye, John," she said quietly, and before I could reply, the door closed behind her. I was left alone in our empty home. I didn't know how much time had passed before I could move. The silence pressed down on me, filling the space. I walked to the kitchen table and sat down. Thoughts swirled in my head, but none of them offered answers. I tried to understand what had gone wrong, where we had lost each other, but the only thing I felt was loneliness. A few days later, I received a letter from her. Her words were as cold and distant as our final conversations. She wrote that she loved me but could no longer live in fear. She had decided to start a new life without constant control and anxiety. "I understand that your freedom is important to you," she wrote, "but my safety and peace of mind are important to me. I hope that one day you'll find what you're looking for." Those words felt like a farewell not just to our life together, but to the love that had once bound us. I read the letter over and over, but found no comfort in it. All I had left were memories of how it had all begun. How we had loved each other, how we had promised to always be together. But promises crumble under the weight of fear and distrust. I tried to understand if I was to blame for what had happened. Maybe if I had met her halfway, if I hadn't turned off the tracking, things would have been different? But deep down, I knew it was inevitable. Our fears and doubts had consumed us. We had fallen into a trap we couldn't escape. Weeks passed, but the emptiness in the house and in my heart remained. I often thought about what Kelly was doing, where she was now. Was she checking someone's location like she had with me? Or had she found a way to find peace? I didn't know the answers, and that made me feel even lonelier. Sometimes I sat on the couch, looking at my phone, and my hand would automatically reach to turn on the tracking feature, but now there was no one left to track me. The freedom I had wanted so badly now felt like a burden. I had gotten what I wanted, but that freedom brought me nothing but pain. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. The long rings echoed in the silence, but no one answered. I understood that she wasn't coming back, and I would have to accept that. But that understanding didn't bring relief. A few more days passed. Life went on, but inside me, everything stood still. I continued going to work, doing my routine tasks, but every day felt the same as the one before. In the evenings, I sat alone in the house, which now seemed too big and empty to me. And every time I looked at the door, I thought about how no one would ever walk through it again. No one would ask me where I'd been and what I'd done. Thank you for listening to our story. Your opinion is very important to us. What do you think about the complex relationship between love and control? Please share your thoughts in the comments. We are always happy to hear from you, and your feedback helps us improve. If you have your own story that you're willing to share, write to us. Maybe it will become the next story on our channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new exciting stories.